this archetype, the passive aggressive peer, Amy, what are some quick fire tips that we can do to actually manage that person?
Yeah. Number one, don't call them passive aggressive.
Nothing makes me angry when my partner calls me out for
exactly. And nothing makes me behave more passive aggressively. Of like,
Exactly.
oh, you want to see passive
Yeah,
aggressive?
you haven't seen anything
yeah,
yet.
exactly. I think also, again, if we think about the fact that it's about a fear of conflict, it's about a fear of rejection, in some ways you have to lay out the red carpet for them of like, you don't have, not in an obsequious way, not in an ungenuine way,
Yeah.
but to make it clear you are disagreeable with, right? Like, I'm okay with conflict. I'm okay with you not
yes.
agreeing with me.
Yeah.
I'm okay with you pushing back.
Yeah.
I'm okay with you telling me that these are unreasonable tasks and that's why you don't follow through on them.
Yeah.
Right? You have to really, really make it clear that you're open to that conversation, even because I think sometimes we create passive aggressive behavior, especially in the people we lead, if we show that we're not willing to have those tough conversations.
That just reminded me again of so many of the assumptions that we create in our relationships as well. I distinctly remember when I was starting a new job at as a senior associate, and the director that I was dealing with, he was just really great at being direct in his instructions, being very explicit. And I just felt like I wasn't being heard, even though it's not that he wasn't creating the space for me to kick back. That was just the assumption that I had, was he just wants me to take the directions and go away and do what he says.
Right.
And so I was really passive aggressive. I still recall getting instructions and just small things like just the tone of my voice even.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things you talk about in the book. It's not always it's the content of the message versus how it's delivered. And that was totally true for me. You know, I knew that I was just feeling frustrated because I wasn't feeling like I was being valued, even though that was just a massive assumption sometimes.
Yeah. What was the tone of your voice, out of curiosity?
I get, I don't even want to try and do it now. I get very like, that's fine. No problem. I'll have that with you right in 5 minutes time. But it's very detectable. Sally, you work with me. You probably have seen it from time to time.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like the sharp, you know, like there's a tone shift that I think is really perceptible for people. And
you sense, for me, it's like I sense withdrawal in that moment. It's like you're not in the room anymore. Something's changed and
you're shutting down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Annie McKee, who's a emotional intelligence expert, calls dealing with passive aggressive people shadow boxing, because it's exactly that, right? Like they disconnect. So you can't even land a punch. And I don't mean land a punch. I mean, you can't connect because they're just like, I'm out. Oh no, I'm going to say yes, but I'm out.
Yeah.
And so that Heidi Grant, who I interviewed for that chapter, she's a social psychologist. She talks about this idea of hypothesis testing too, which is like, you know, you have to have a pretty strong relationship to do this. Although you could try it out also with someone who you don't know as well. But, you know, Sally, you could say to Alexis, like, "Ooh, I get the sense you just disconnected. I may be wrong here. Right? You don't want to accuse, right? Like, I may be wrong, but do we need to like try this again, or should we, should we come back to this conversation later?" So you're giving them. They don't have to say, "I'm so frustrated with you. Please stop." Right? They can say, "Yeah, like we need a different take," or whatever it is.
Yeah. What a fuse breaker though, because I feel like that invitation to introspect quite often for me, I'm getting that amygdala hijack and it's happening so quickly that I don't even know I've gone offline.
Yeah.
And it's not until someone says, "Hey, like, is it all good? I'm feeling like this isn't quite landing how we planned," that I'm like, "Oh, I've actually flipped the switch into passive aggressive." So it's a good circuit breaker.
Yeah. Being welcomed back online almost.
Yeah. I love that.
And giving people space. I mean, I think there's a feedback tool. I introduced it in the chapter about the biased colleague, which is that you describe the situation, the behavior, and the impact, right? Like you interrupted me 3 times. In a meeting, that's the situation, behavior. You interrupted me 3 times, the impact. It made me feel like you didn't care about what I had to say. Whatever.
I love that.
Right. But I like to add another I, which is intention, which is I know that probably wasn't your intention.
Yes.
Right. It's just, again, to say like, because even describing like it made me feel like you didn't value my voice sounds like an accusation.
Right.
Yeah.
It made me feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to say, it probably wasn't your intention, allows them to be like, yeah, I was just stressed, or, oh, I sometimes come off like that, or, oh, you know, it gives them this out.
And it also says, like, I trust that that wasn't, like, I trust you as a person to respect who I am as well. And so it's, you know, this is, I I would not assume that would be your intention. I think it really gives that validation that in this relationship, there's trust here.
Yeah, it's the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, it's ego calming, right?
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
because the ego comes in like, wait, I'm not a good leader. I'm a bad person. I'm passive aggressive. Like you start going off the rails, and you just calm the ego.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Straight into aggressive.
Yeah.